From a young age, a girl had the peculiar habit of not wearing underwear and bathing with snakes. To put an end to this strange custom, her father killed all the snakes within a 100-mile radius. However, the night he did this, his parents were attacked and killed by snakes. From that night on, the girl contracted a high fever, and snake scales began to appear all over her body. The townsfolk said that her father's massacre of snakes had enraged the snake spirits, unleashing a curse on their family. In despair, her grandfather ran to a temple in the mountains and asked the immortal fox for a chain of red copper bells, which he tied around the girl's ankle. Only then was she saved. Her fever subsided, and the snake scales began to disappear. The girl thought her nightmare was over. But on her 19th birthday, the snake scales reappeared on the back of her hand. That same night, several snakes slithered into her bed and rubbed against her thighs and chest. She understood what it all meant. With her grandfather already deceased, there was no one who could get her new bells to save her. In desperation, her grandmother took her to see the neighborhood witch, Grandma Huang, searching for a way out. But Grandma Huang only looked at her and said, "I can't handle this. You'd better leave." After her grandmother pleaded with her, the witch agreed to cast a divination. The girl pulled a token from the wooden bucket the witch had and drew 3 dead tokens. When her trembling hand drew the 4th, it suddenly turned into the best token. Grandma Huang told her there might be a small chance for her, but the token was so strange that she couldn't interpret it and would need to consult her spirit guide. So she took them to the family altar. In front of the lotus pond was a tablet with the black characters "Great Immortal Lord Huang" on red paper. The witch lit an incense stick, bowed to the tablet, recited the girl's horoscope, and murmured something like, "A dead woman's fate. This token is difficult to interpret." When the incense was lit, something in the shadow, under Grandma Huang's feet, began to slowly climb up her body. She shook, her head turned sharply to look at them, her neck made a bony creak, her eyes shrunk to half the size of a soybean, and a strange smile appeared on her mouth. In a hoarse voice, she said, "This snake debt envelops you, snake scales cover you, you must pay the debt or die." The grandmother nervously asked, "Great Immortal, how should we pay this debt?" "The snake debt, you should not ask me, but your ancestors," the voice replied. The grandmother tried to ask more, but the witch's body shuddered and returned to normal. Grandma Huang rubbed her temples and said, "As you heard, my spirit guide said the Su family must pay a debt, but it's not for me to tell you how." The grandmother immediately asked, "Then who can tell us?" Grandma Huang explained, "For the snake debt, you must ask the immortal Chang. The immortal Chang is the willow immortal." Grandma Huang lit another incense stick, took a handful of ashes, and scattered them on the table. The ashes moved without a wind, and soon they formed a person's name. Grandma Huang's face changed drastically, her lips trembling. "The immortal Chang who governs this area is not easy to deal with. You must be prepared," she said. I nodded and said, "Grandma Huang, please ask." Seeing my consent, the witch put her hands together and muttered a spell, then knelt facing east. She bowed repeatedly, until her forehead bled. The incense stick that had been lit suddenly went out, the witch stopped bowing and shouted, "Welcome, great Lord Bai." My grandmother immediately grabbed me and forced me to kneel as well. I got goosebumps. I suddenly felt very anxious. The room was very cold, and in the darkness, something seemed to be watching me. "The Su family has a debt. Today I dare to ask great Lord Bai, how can we pay this debt?" Grandma Huang said. Then, a voice came from the darkness of the room, "A life for a life." My grandmother crying said, "No, all the people in our family will die. You can take my life, but please let this girl live." I tried to stop my grandmother, telling her not to say nonsense. But the voice continued, "You also don't have to die, but you must return the same number of lives you took. As many people in your family who have died, they have paid for the same number of snakes. For the rest, this woman must give birth to a snake fetus to pay the debt. However many you killed back then, that is the number remaining now." My grandmother was paralyzed and then, trembling, said, "Great Lord Bai, my granddaughter is already betrothed. This marriage cannot be broken. If it is, she will not live." Hearing this, I was confused. I had no idea I was betrothed. Grandma Huang also raised her head and looked at me in astonishment, seeming to signal my grandmother and me not to say anything foolish. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and the sound of snake bells rubbing against the floor suddenly rang out. However, I didn't see any snakes in the room, and my heart sped up. Suddenly the sound stopped behind me. A cold snake's tail suddenly wrapped around my ankle, followed by the sound of bells coming from my ankle. The voice also came from behind me. Ah, 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 how nice. No wonder the descendants of the Su family have died or been injured, and you managed to live to 18. So you are betrothed to that fox. I was shocked, not understanding what he meant. Since you asked someone else to save you, why do you come to ask me? The snake's tail suddenly tightened, hurting my ankle. In a grim tone, he continued, I'll give you one last chance. Get pregnant with a snake fetus to pay your Su family's debt. An image of countless intertwined snakes flashed through my mind. A feeling of nausea rose in my chest and I blurted out, Impossible. How can a person give birth to a snake? Grandma Huang suddenly began to bow again, trembling. Great Lord Bai, please don't be angry. The girl doesn't understand. At that moment, I heard the voice laugh coldly. The snake's tail that was holding my ankle disappeared. The temperature in the room seemed to rise. But the incense stick that had gone out before broke in two. Grandma Huang sat on the floor, defeated. It's over! The snake immortal is furious! She screamed. Then she pointed at my grandmother and me. You too! Get out of my house now! I don't want to be as unlucky as you. My grandmother and I were almost chased out. When we got home, my grandmother looked even older. I asked the question I had been holding in all the way home. Grandma, what does it mean that I'm betrothed to a fox? My grandmother's gaze went to the red bells on my ankle. 1. This chain of bells on your ankle is called the red copper bells of the snake. Your grandfather asked an immortal fox for it back then. I looked at her in great astonishment. Does that mean my grandfather asked the immortal fox to save me? Then why did we go to see Grandma Huang? My grandmother interrupted me. Without this chain of red bells, you would have died young like the other children of the Su family. But this chain can only protect you until you are 18. As for your engagement to the immortal fox, I don't know either. Only your grandfather knew. The only thing I know is that we cannot break the agreement with the immortal, otherwise your life will be in danger. I didn't know how to describe what I was feeling. I could only comfort my grandmother and ask her not to worry and to rest well tonight. Tomorrow was my birthday, and I wanted her to be happy. My grandmother said nothing, but that night she insisted on sleeping in the same room as me. I couldn't persuade her, so we both lay in the same bed. Perhaps because my grandmother was next to me, I didn't sleep very deeply. Just after 12 midnight I heard a sound, as if something was moving, and then a knock. It sounded like someone was tapping on my window. But when I looked out the window, I didn't see anything. I pulled back the covers and shone my phone's light around, suddenly realizing something had sparkled on the floor. Remembering what had happened that day, I was scared. I got out of bed, put on my slippers, and searched again with my phone's light, but there was nothing on the floor. I sighed in relief. It must have been my imagination. The sound on the window must have been the wind. I slowly got back into bed, and then the tapping sound on the window came back. This time, I heard it more clearly. It wasn't the wind. Something was really tapping on my window. When I looked, I saw a pair of red eyes staring at me. I screamed and jumped onto the bed, trying to wake my grandmother. But when I pulled back the covers, I touched some cold snake scales. Grandma, there are snakes in the room, I screamed. In a panic, I turned on the light, but the doorway was already filled with more snakes. They entered the room and covered the floor. I screamed and jumped back onto the bed, throwing the snakes off the bed, but more and more snakes began to climb up. My grandmother and I fought, using pillows to beat them away, but it seemed there was no end. The snakes opened their huge mouths and furiously lunged at us. My grandmother was the first to get tired. In a moment of carelessness, a snake bit her on the back of her hand. The bite site immediately turned black. I understood that these snakes were venomous. My eyes filled with tears. I desperately tried to ward off the snakes and protect my grandmother. My grandmother sat on the bed with a bitter smile, her face losing color. In the end, we couldn't escape, she said. Looking at the nest of snakes, I screamed at the door, crying, I know you've come, I promise, okay? I agreed to give birth to a snake fetus. The group of snakes stopped moving. The snakes that had furiously lunged at my grandmother and me retreated. A space opened up among the group of snakes at the door, and a figure dressed in white appeared there. With red eyes, I gritted my teeth and said, I agree to give birth to a snake fetus, but please, can you save my grandmother? Seeing my grandmother's breathing getting weaker and her pained expression, I felt a chill in my heart. To think I would have to watch my last remaining relative die in front of my eyes made me cry. The man in white suddenly beckoned to me with a finger. I was afraid and didn't dare to go closer. At that moment, the snakes parted and the man in white strode over. He grabbed me by the arm, pulled me off the bed, carried me, despite my struggles and resistance, and threw me onto the bed in another room. He looked down at me. I'll give you this chance. I'll save your grandmother, and you will give birth to a snake fetus to pay the debt. His gaze fell on my ankle. Although the bells no longer worked, I had gotten used to wearing them every day and hadn't taken them off. He ripped them off with one hand. His eyes filled with anger. That fox! What kind of thing is it? While I felt pain, he put a hand under my nightgown. His skin was warm, not like a normal person's. His hand moved from below, stroking every inch of my skin, from my thigh to a deeper place, making me involuntarily tremble. I panicked and tried to move away, but he held me down firmly. His lips touched mine softly. Suddenly, my mind went blank. I felt a numbing sensation from below, and I could only let him do whatever he wanted. Just as he was getting on top of me, I realized that what was pressing on me was not a person at all, it was a snake. I began to struggle again, but his strength was so terrible that I couldn't move. I could only turn my head, closing my eyes in humiliation and praying that all of this would end soon. His free hand suddenly grabbed my chin, forcing me to turn my head. His voice was on the verge of erupting. You're the one begging me now, and you have this attitude? I felt disgusted in my heart, and didn't dare to open my eyes to look at him. But he said nothing. He held my hand more tightly, and his subsequent movements lost all the previous gentleness, completely disregarding my feelings. The pain made me cry. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt like it was filled with cotton, and I could only make a weak sound. The pain from my lower body made me desperately want to flee this room, but I felt a burning sensation in my eyes. I couldn't pay attention to the abnormality of my eyes. I couldn't even cry loudly. I don't know when I fainted that night. When I woke up the next day, there was a faint snake smell in the room, along with a shadow. My body was so sore that I felt like it was going to fall apart. I lay in bed for a long time before gritting my teeth and getting up to see my grandmother. The wound on the back of her hand was no longer black, but she was still unconscious. I filled the bathtub with water and got in, crying silently. At noon I put on long clothes to cover the marks on my body and went back to Grandma Huang's house. When she saw me, she was surprised that I was still alive. I ignored her gaze and asked her, "Grandma Huang, my grandmother was bitten by a snake last night. The toxin is gone, but she's still unconscious. Can you help me?" Hearing that my grandmother had been bitten by a snake and seeing the marks on my neck that were hard to cover, she understood everything. Grandma Huang shook her head. "Girl, since it's done, it's done. Don't come asking me. If nothing unexpected happens, he'll come back tonight. Ask him about your grandmother's situation." I tried to speak, but Grandma Huang waved her hand. "Go. That immortal Chang's temper isn't good. I don't want to get into trouble." Grandma Huang had decided not to interfere in our family's affairs anymore. I could only return home. After eating, I lay in bed and fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but I was woken up by the pain in my eyes. I covered my eyes. It felt like my eyeballs were going to pop out of their sockets. My eyes had been hurting since last night. Had a snake bitten me without me knowing? My eyes teared up from the pain, and my vision was blurry. When I closed my eyes, I felt my eyelids burn. When I opened them, I felt my eyeballs being pricked by needles as they came into contact with the air. I wanted to get up and go to the refrigerator to get some ice. Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside the door. The footsteps were very light and stopped at the door. I knew it wasn't my grandmother, so it could only be the person from last night. "Wake up, come out," his emotionless voice said. I gripped the sheets without realizing it. "What do you want?" "If you want the rest of your Su family to live, become my disciple," he said from outside the door. I didn't understand why he suddenly said that. "The rest of the Su family? What do you mean?" I touched my eyes and asked again, "Was this thing with my eyes also in your plans?" "The Su family has a debt. The retribution will not just fall on the descendants of the Su family. No one in your family, in the future, will be able to escape. As for your eyes, you were born without pupils, and that pair of eyes doesn't belong to you." My face was filled with confusion. "If they aren't my eyes, then whose are they?" I wanted to ask more, but he said impatiently, "If you're done asking, come out." The consequences of angering him last night were still vivid in my memory. I didn't want to cause him any more trouble at this time, so I put on a light jacket and opened the door. When I came out, he was writing something on the table. When he saw me, he put down his pen. Clean a room, set up 3 clean wooden tablets, and paste 3 papers on them, facing east. Light incense on the 1st and 15th of each month, and offer fresh chicken, duck, fish, and meat to them every day. But why do I have to be your disciple? I asked, ignoring the pain in my eyes. What good is it to you for my practice? Besides, if you don't become my disciple, your eyes will go crazy within a year. And if you die, you won't have finished paying the debt of giving birth to the snake fetus. And the rest of the Su family won't be able to live. To think that an ordinary girl like me was stripped of her body the night before her 19th birthday, and on her birthday, she was told she wouldn't live if she didn't become a shaman's disciple, made me feel that my life had been ruined by a snake. At that moment, I really wanted to run and fight the snake in front of me. But thinking of my grandmother, who was still unconscious, and the other relatives of the Su family, I could only suppress my emotions and agree. He looked at me for a moment, then raised a hand and tapped me on the forehead. I recoiled in pain, but I found that my eyes no longer hurt. A refreshing sensation entered my eyes, and my vision gradually became clearer. I rubbed my eyes and for the first time saw the face of this immortal Chang. He had a pair of peach blossom eyes with shallow pupils and beautiful facial features. TV stars were nothing compared to this. I was a little stunned when he spoke. Tomorrow, get the word out that you've started taking business. Your grandmother will wake up in 7 days. After leaving these words, he turned into a puff of white smoke and dissipated. I went to the table and looked at the 3 papers. All 3 were red, and the one in the center had 2 black characters, Bai Zhong. The immortals of the Gong Bao family in the northeast generally have 3 tablets. The tablets have the immortals' names, and they are placed facing the direction of the mountain where the immortal resides. This was common knowledge that I had absorbed since I was a child. I figured shamans were similar, so Bai Zhong must be his name. The other 2 tablets also had names, Bai Liu and Bai Huai. I didn't know who these 2 people were, and I didn't think much about it. The next morning, I followed his instructions and set up the 3 wooden tablets. Just when I finished, and was exhausted, a middle-aged woman knocked on the door and shouted, "Miss Su, are you there? Please save my daughter-in-law. I'm Liu Fen from the next village, Lotus Village. My daughter-in-law has been possessed by a dirty thing lately and is suffering. Can you come take a look?" I frowned. "You people in Lotus Village have your own witch. Why do you come looking for me?" A trace of embarrassment crossed the woman's face. "Miss Su, last night my daughter-in-law dreamed that a small snake came into her dream and told us to come find you." Hearing her mention a snake, I understood. I went back to the wooden tablet, but I didn't know how to call Bai Zhong. I lit an incense stick and bowed several times as Grandma Hong had done, but there was no change. I felt a bit disheartened. At that moment, something hit me on the back of the neck. Bai Zhong appeared behind me with a somber face. "To call your immortal, you must light the incense and recite the name in your mind. Who taught you to bow?" I bit my lip, avoiding his eyes. "Someone named Li Fen from Lotus Village has come to find me. Did you send her?" "The witch in Lotus Village wouldn't take the case. So you come to me. The thing that family has provoked is fierce. The witch in Lotus Village doesn't dare to handle it. From now on you will only accept fierce cases, the ones no one else dares to handle." I was frightened, thinking he was joking. "How can I have the ability to handle such cases?" He looked at me sideways. "I am your immortal," I decided. After saying that, Bai Zhong transformed into a white snake that slowly became small and wrapped around my wrist, its snake tail looking like a silver bracelet. Then, I followed Li Fen to the next village, Lotus Village. But as soon as I entered her house, I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't psychological, I just felt very uneasy. I said casually, "There's something wrong with this house." Li Fen nodded repeatedly. "Ever since something happened to my daughter-in-law, my family has been unlucky. My husband broke his leg working in the field, and my son is always losing money in his business." What she said gave me a familiar feeling. This family must have done something to deserve retribution. Li Fen led me to her daughter-in-law's room. The woman, who was lying on the bed, didn't look much older than me. Her face was pale, her lips purple, as if someone was choking her. This room was on the shady side, and I felt even colder upon entering. The problem had to be here, but I couldn't see anything. I couldn't embarrass myself. So I asked Li Fen to leave. After Li Fen left, Bai Zhong's voice rang in my mind. Use your eyes to look carefully. I blinked hard, but I couldn't see anything unusual about the woman. Suddenly, Bai Zhong's voice sounded irritated. You fool, I didn't tell you to look at your feet. The dirty things are already climbing up your body. I was scared, but I looked around and at my feet. Other than the sick woman on the bed, there was nothing else in the room. I won't help you until you see clearly what they are, Bai Zhong said indifferently, with no intention of helping me. I touched my wrist and found that he was no longer there. Suddenly a child's laughter appeared without warning. My heart sped up and I backed away. My legs suddenly felt heavy, as if they were tied to a weight. I turned to open the door, but the doorknob refused to budge. The woman on the bed stirred, stretching her hands to grab her own neck. Then she turned to look at me. In a hoarse and hysterical voice, she said, "Help me! Help me!" I wanted to cry even more. I could feel something crawling up my legs, up my thighs and onto my chest. But I couldn't see anything. I couldn't save her. I couldn't even save myself. I screamed Bai Zhong's name, but there was no response. My breathing also became difficult. I decided to take a chance and began to tear at my clothes. And just as I closed my eyes, I felt something. They were like a pair of small hands strangling my neck. I opened my eyes suddenly, and I saw a grey mass in front of me, but I couldn't see it clearly. I screamed, "A pair of hands is strangling my neck." Bai Zhong's voice sounded, "Look closely. What is it?" My breathing became more and more difficult. My vision became blurred. The woman on the bed suddenly fell to the ground, crying and crawling toward me. "Help me! Help me! Don't leave me here!" My body couldn't take it anymore, and I slid down the door. At that moment, the force on my neck became stronger. The pain made me cry uncontrollably, and my eyes filled with tears. Right at that moment, I realized that after crying, my vision had suddenly become clear. I saw a pair of small, empty eyes from which black blood flowed. I screamed, "They're children! They're children!" Suddenly, a hand grabbed me and pulled me. My body tilted forward, and the force on my neck disappeared instantly. 3 little ghosts were next to me, all with fierce expressions and bared teeth, trying to get closer. Bai Zhong frowned, kicking the woman. Children who were aborted prematurely are full of resentment and easily turn into evil spirits, seeking revenge on their mother. I looked up and saw that the woman who was crawling toward me had a small ghost hanging from her, so there were 4 ghosts in the room. She had aborted 4 times. Bai Zhong narrowed his eyes. It seems that in the human concept this is quite common. He pointed to the 4 ghosts. They are all girls. I was silent. I only felt that the woman on the floor also had a miserable life. She wasn't much older than me. At that moment, I remembered what Li Fen had said to me when I came in, and I felt that this family deserved it. "Let me teach you something," Bai Zhong said, waving a hand. The ghost hanging from the woman's neck shrieked and rolled on the floor, as if something had burned it. The woman also fainted, as if all her strength had been exhausted. He stood by the window. "This woman aborted 4 times, and the evil spirits are haunting her, and this room, which is on the shady side, is full of evil. The evil spirits, which would only harm the mother, have also harmed the whole family. If this continues, all of these people will die." Bai Zhong stood there and looked at me coldly. "I won't deal with these little things. You have already placed my and my sister's names on the altar. You just need to recite their names in your mind to call them." I quickly recited the names of Bai Liu and Bai Hui in my mind. Suddenly, 2 small flower snakes appeared at my feet. The snakes slowly transformed into a pair of twin girls. Both seemed to be about 10 years old. One of the girls smiled broadly and gave me a strange salute. "Hello, Sister Wan." This girl was very enthusiastic, but the other one next to her had a cold face and just stared at me without speaking. "Sister Wan, my name is Bai Liu. She is my younger sister Bai Hui. She isn't good at exercising evil, so the next time you want to deal with dirty things you don't have to call her. Leave this to me." I sighed in relief. I had finally found someone who was easy to talk to. A dagger appeared in her hand. Her eyes moved and she smiled at me. "Sister Wan, stay back." Bai Liu approached the 4 little ghosts with the dagger and began to stab them in the head, as if she were chopping a watermelon. Sticky black blood splattered. I backed away, no longer thinking she was an immortal who was easy to talk to. After the 4 little ghosts died, they turned into black smoke and dissipated. Then Bai Hui approached the woman. Although she was small, her strength was enormous. She put the woman back on the bed, then checked her eyelids and took her pulse. Bai Zhong turned back into a small snake and coiled around my wrist. After a while, Bai Hui stood up and said coldly, "The person can live." Then she and Bai Liu disappeared. After that, I called Li Fen to come in and told her that the little ghosts haunting her family were gone. When she heard this, her face lit up, saying that her daughter-in-law had finally overcome this and could have children again. Hearing this, I laughed coldly. "You know better than anyone why these 4 evil spirits were haunting your family. I'm warning you now, if you continue to make your daughter-in-law have abortions, your entire family will suffer. In this area, only Grandma Huang and I are shamans. If neither of us cares about you, who are you going to go find then?" I took the money and left. But just as I turned around, a hand touched my butt. I shivered and turned to see Li Fen and her son. Her son's gaze was lecherous as he looked at me. "Immortal Master, my wife isn't good enough to give me a son." "Immortal Master, you are young and beautiful, and you probably haven't found the right man. Why don't you stay with me?" Before I could slap him, Bai Zhong on my wrist was faster than me. Bai Zhong bit Li Fen's son's hand. As he screamed and jumped, Bai Zhong quickly coiled back around my wrist. He writhed on the ground, moaning in pain. The small bite wound quickly turned black, and within a few seconds, his entire hand had turned black. I was shocked by Bai Zhong's ferocity, and I wanted to say something, but Bai Zhong on my wrist moved again. A large black snake came out of nowhere and coiled around Li Fen's ankle. She fell to the ground face first. Li Fen looked at the fierce-looking black snake on her foot, and her arrogance immediately disappeared. She apologized and smiled. I only felt that the whole family was unreasonable, so I turned and went home. To my surprise, the next day I heard rumors in the village that I was a demon, and that I was with a nest of snakes that could kill people. I didn't have to think twice. It must have been Li Fen's revenge. I had left Li Fen's house yesterday, and her son's hand was ruined. The evidence was overwhelming. People started pointing at me. As a result, no one would come to see me anytime soon. I wanted to use this time to take care of my grandmother. That night, I fell asleep and had a strange dream. I was on a mountain. There were dense trees and fog. I got lost in the forest, walking in circles. The forest was huge, but there was no sound of birds. The sky was getting dark, and I felt anxious. Suddenly someone called my name, "Wan Wan." The voice was gentle and came from not far away. I followed the voice and quickly walked out of the forest. A man with a blurry face was standing not far away. He was wearing a red robe and seemed to be wearing an ethnic costume. He was barefoot. He seemed to be smiling, and he waved at me. I slowly walked toward him. But just as I was about to reach him, everything turned dark. I only heard a very familiar roar, "Su Wan." I woke up with my heart pounding, frightened by his roar. Bai Zhong was standing by my bed. One of his hands was on my neck and was slowly tightening. His face was terrifyingly somber. I slowly clutched his hand. "What's wrong?" Bai Zhong gritted his teeth as if he was suppressing anger. "He told you to go, and you went?" I realized. Was he talking about my dream? But how did he know what I had dreamed? "Su Wan, I won't repeat it a second time. Don't let that fox get close to you." Bai Zhong let go of me and said coldly, "You bear the snake debt of the entire Su family, and now you are my disciple. Your marriage to him has already been broken. If he takes advantage of it to get tangled with you again, you and the rest of the Su family will die." I clutched my neck, feeling a dryness. Suddenly, I realized that the man I had dreamed of was the immortal fox who said he would marry me. He entered my dream on purpose. He looked at the bruise on my neck, and Bai Zhong stopped, gently stroking my face. His voice became softer. "Su Wan, remember what I told you, stay away from him." Bai Zhong turned and left, leaving only his back. I knew that the most troublesome thing had finally come. The immortal fox I had a promised marriage with had returned. Bai Zhong was very terrifying when it came to the immortal fox. It seemed that I couldn't disobey him. But if the immortal fox got angry and came after me, would I be safe? Just when I thought I would have a time of rest, a second job soon came to me. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Uncle Liu, my old neighbor before my village was demolished. I asked him to come in, and he said, "Half a month ago, my son came back from the city. It was midnight when he arrived. He said that on the road, a woman without her lower body suddenly appeared in front of the car. My son didn't have time to brake and ran over her. When my son got home, he was fine and he thought it had been an illusion. But soon after, his wife started acting strangely. At night she would crawl all over the living room as if she had no legs. Grandma Huang said that my son brought a female ghost home. Men have strong yang energy, so the female ghost can't possess them, so she can only harm women. Grandma Huang said that if we exorcise the ghost, my daughter-in-law would be paralyzed in her legs. After understanding the situation, I planned to go see Uncle Liu the next day. But Bai Zhong's voice told me to go at night to see his daughter-in-law's situation. I pouted my lips, but I had to obey. When I arrived at Uncle Liu's house, I felt nervous. It seems that since the last time my eyes can see dirty things. I saw a pair of bloody legs standing at the door of his house, not moving. Walking past them was a test of my mental state. I should have called Bai Zhong in this situation, but he didn't seem to have any intention of showing up. So I recited Bai Liu's name in my mind. Soon she stood in front of me. I pointed at the legs at the door and said, "This family has encountered something bloody. A woman in the house was possessed by a female ghost, but now there's something like this at the door." Bai Liu walked over and walked around the legs several times with no intention of attacking. "Sister Wan Wan, these legs came with the female ghost inside. We can't easily touch them. If I eliminate them now, the female ghost inside might become violent." Bai Liu knew I was scared and didn't ask me anything about Bai Zhong and me. She just smiled, took my hand and helped me walk past the legs and into Uncle Liu's yard. Uncle Liu told me that around 11 at night, his daughter-in-law would get out of bed and crawl around the living room with her hands in a strange manner. I asked everyone to wait outside, and I went into the bedroom with Bai Liu. When I opened the door, Uncle Liu's daughter-in-law was not lying on the bed, but was face down on the bed, propped up on her arms, with her back to me and her face to the window. I called her name as a test. She slowly turned her head, and I saw that her eyes were white, her mouth was open, and drool was dripping out. But she only looked at me once, then turned back to look out the window. The female ghost must have been hit by a car, and her legs were broken on the road. The man of this family, who was driving back that night, ran over her, but he only took her, not her legs. Bai Liu pointed to the window. "Sister Wan Wan, the direction she is looking is the same direction as the legs outside." Bai Liu walked over and played with her dagger, then put it away and shrugged. "Sister Wan Wan, I can't handle this. You have to find Bai Hui." It seemed that this case was mainly for saving people. So I called Bai Hui. When Bai Hui saw the woman sitting on the bed, she frowned. I thought she wouldn't want to talk again, but she suddenly spoke to me. Soul containment. I didn't understand what she meant. She didn't try to explain to me, but instead walked to the window. With a slap of her hand, she hit the woman on the back of the neck. The woman let out a strange cry, then went limp like a rag. Bai Hui took her pulse and started sticking needles into her. Bai Liu came over to me and whispered, "This female ghost has been in her body for too long. If we kill her directly, the woman's body won't be able to handle it. So Bai Hui has to contain the female ghost slowly, and then kill her." The legs were attracted by the female ghost. If we had come a few days later, and the female ghost's legs had entered the door, this woman might have died. Once the female ghost is annihilated, the legs will disappear. Bai Hui had already placed silver needles on several of the woman's acupuncture points. For the second time she spoke to me. "Do we contain the soul?" I didn't understand why she was asking me if she should contain the soul when she had already prepared the needles. I nodded without thinking. I didn't understand Bai Hui's soul containment technique. A miserable, twisting, wailing sound continuously came from the woman's mouth. After the incense burned out, Bai Hui withdrew the needles. On her palm, a dark grey mass had gathered. At that moment, the woman on the bed woke up. She was stunned for a few seconds, then covered her face and cried hysterically, as if she had survived a disaster. Outside, Uncle Liu couldn't help but knock on the door. I let out a sigh of relief and was about to tell Uncle Liu that they could come in. But suddenly my vision went dark, and I fell onto the floor. I felt completely drained of energy, about to lose consciousness. Did you really think that being a shaman was an easy thing, and that you wouldn't have to do anything? Did you really believe that such a thing exists in this world? Bai Zhong's voice sounded behind me, giving me a fright. Bai Liu and Bai Hui knelt on one knee and silently retreated behind Bai Zhong. I supported myself on the floor and couldn't get up. He slowly said behind me, "If I don't teach you how to replenish yourself, are you going to let the immortals you serve drain you to death?" He lifted me off the ground with one hand. At that moment, Uncle Liu knocked on the door again. I told Uncle Liu, in a weak voice, that he could come in. After seeing that the woman's legs were fine, Uncle Liu ran over to grab my hand, excited to give me money. Bai Zhong said that I should take the money and also ask Uncle Liu to speak well of me in the village to break the rumors. I mentioned this to Uncle Liu. He said, "Grandma Huang couldn't save my daughter-in-law, but you could. Your ability is obvious, isn't it? Just wait, Uncle Liu will definitely help you in the village and make those loose tongues shut up." After getting Uncle Liu's promise, I felt relieved. After resting for a while, my vision was no longer so blurry. I took the money and said my goodbyes. The village roads at night were difficult to walk on. I used my phone as a flashlight, walking and panting. My eyes felt more and more blurry. I fell every 2 steps. I looked down, and a snake that came out of nowhere tripped me, and then it quickly slithered away. After stumbling over snakes that appeared out of nowhere several times, my eyes turned red and I turned to shout at Bai Zhong in frustration, "When are you going to stop? Is it fun to bully me?" Bai Zhong seemed to have had enough fun and narrowed his eyes. "The names of the 3 of us are on your altar, and in theory, we are your immortals. But in reality, Bai Liu and Bai Hui are my subordinates. When I am present and I lead them, you can use my power. But if you try to go over my head, you will have to give them your own life energy." It turns out that the reason I am so weak now is because Bai Hui extracted my life energy for soul containment. No wonder she asked me if she should do it. I asked him what I should do. "I'll teach you how to practice. There's also a way to debut as a shaman. You will practice that." He came over to me and suddenly, with a look of disgust, he lifted my chin with his hand. "Now I have to give you the strength to walk back." After saying that, he suddenly came close to my face and pressed his lips against mine. While I was stunned, he used his tongue to pry open my teeth and blew a breath of air into me. Because of the experience of that night, I now have an instinctive fear of physical contact. When I realized it, I pushed him away with my hand, but he didn't move. It was I who took 2 steps back. My action made him frown, and he laughed coldly again. "Suan, you can refuse me. This time I'll let you go, but the day will come when you beg me to sleep with you." After returning home that night, Bai Zhong transformed into a puff of white smoke and flew to the altar, without saying another word to me. I thought I would have a period of peace, but to my surprise, the next person at the door was the village chief. The village chief told me that they were going to build a road in the village. According to the old rule, they had to find someone to take charge of the foundation pounding and sacrifice some sheep and goats to appease the spirits in case they disturbed some demon or ghost on the road and couldn't start the construction smoothly. I wanted to refuse, but the village chief told me that he had a dream last night that a big snake told him that I would handle this. Since within a few kilometers, Grandma Huang served a Huang immortal and my family served a Chang immortal, I knew that Bai Zhong had accepted the job for me. I could only agree. After the village chief left, I ran to the altar and called Bai Zhong with a sullen face. "Did you accept a foundation pounding job for the road construction?" A puff of white smoke slowly appeared and a small white snake appeared on the ground. "You're unhappy, aren't you? This is a job that requires you to do nothing, and you can earn a good reputation. I've seen the energy of your village's terrain. It's a small energy vein, so there won't be anything evil. At worst, there will be some wandering ghosts on the road. Just let Bai Liu kill them. You just have to stand by and you don't have to do anything." Hearing what he said, I was tempted. Perhaps seeing the change in my expression, he knew that I was willing to go, and Bai Zhong looked at me coldly again, turning into white smoke and disappearing. The road construction was a big deal in the village. The foundation pounding had to be done before the official construction started, and I had to go one step ahead to check the situation. So the ceremony was scheduled for noon tomorrow. However, just as it got dark, I suddenly heard a movement at the door. I thought someone was knocking on the door, but when I opened it, there was no one outside. On the ground, however, there were 2 motionless ferrets, obviously dead. In the northeast, even children know not to kill ferrets. These things hold a lot of grudges, and killing one could bring a lot of pain in the future. When I saw the 2 ferret corpses, I was enraged, thinking that someone had secretly placed them at my door to harm me. Suddenly, Bai Zhong appeared behind me. The one surnamed Huang couldn't sit still so quickly. He waved his sleeve, and the 2 ferret corpses suddenly started burning. In a short time, they turned into 2 piles of ash. "Grandma Huang is warning you for stealing her business. Ignore her and let her blabber. She dares to be wild in front of me with a wild ferret." Bai Zhong's attitude was incredibly tough, so I could only follow his instructions. At noon the next day, I arrived at the entrance of the village as scheduled. According to the procedure, we first sacrificed sheep and goats, and then a simple groundbreaking ceremony was held. I was the youngest person in the crowd, but because of my identity, no one dared to talk to me. Bai Zhong turned back into a small white snake, wrapping himself around my wrist. I watched as they sacrificed a sheep and sprinkled its blood, then carried the entire sheep to the side of the road base. It was the first time I had ever seen a foundation pounding ceremony, and I felt curious. Suddenly Bai Zhong on my wrist moved. "Stop them and have them go see." Bai Zhong's voice could only be heard by me. I quickly asked the village chief to stop, but the village chief suddenly put on a Chinese opera face and whispered to me, "Girl Suwan, it's bad luck to stop something like this in the middle. Did you discover something?" Bai Zhong continued to say, "Something drank the sacrificial blood." I repeated the words to the village chief and he quickly gave instructions. The crowd that was about to sacrifice the goat immediately stopped. Everyone's eyes were on me. I was urged by Bai Zhong to go to the sacrificed sheep's corpse. Bai Zhong unwound himself from my wrist, slithered to the area where the blood had been sprinkled, and asked me to dig up that area. I asked the people to dig. The deeper they dug, the more everyone's faces changed. The blood had just been sprinkled, but the dirt, as they dug deeper, had already turned red with blood. The small pit already had a certain depth, and no clean soil could be seen. Bai Zhong suddenly transformed into his human form, looked at the pit for a moment and said, "Tell them to continue the ceremony. Don't worry about the other sacrifices. Just bury them in the pit. Say that everything is normal. Let Bai Liu deal with the wandering ghosts on the road, and I will see what ate the sacrifice." Then I turned to the village chief and said, "There's something in this area that ate our sacrifices, but as the saying goes, if you take someone's money, you must help them solve their problems. Since that thing ate our things, it won't bother us, so the rest of the process is normal. Bury the sheep and goat together in this pit." The village chief nodded repeatedly and told everyone to do it. After the groundbreaking ceremony, I told the village chief that I would go deal with the remaining wandering ghosts, and I walked on the dirt road by myself with no one following me. I thought that on such a sunny day there would be no ghosts wandering around. But when I came to the fork that led to Sunny Village and Lotus Village, something quickly flashed in front of my eyes. I looked closely, and it was a ferret. It looked at me from not far away, and its posture was as if it was waiting for me to approach. With the warning of the 2 ferret corpses from last night, I didn't dare to take it lightly and called Bai Liu. Bai Liu said, "This is just a little one that wants to show you the way." I didn't dare to be careless, so I carefully followed the snake with Bai Liu. Before long we followed it to a small burial mound. Just when I didn't think much of it, Bai Liu suddenly stood in front of me. "Sister Wan Wan, don't go any further, there's something big there." At that moment, a cold, sinister voice sounded from behind the burial mound. It turns out to be a little flower snake. The voice faded, and a pale face peered out from behind the burial mound. At first, the voice sounded genderless, but the face was a man's. His whole body was in the shadow, and he was wearing a black cloak. Bai Liu smiled, and suddenly a dagger appeared in her hand. "It's rare to see a 9-veined fox with such deep cultivation as you." Although I didn't understand what 9-veined fox meant, I knew something was wrong and I started to back away. The fox looked at me, pointed at me and said, "Girl, you've just started work, haven't you? Does your altar need people? Do you have a place for me?" I couldn't tell if this guy was a human or a ghost. If he was a ghost, how would a ghost dare to appear in broad daylight? But if he was a human, his body was full of a ghostly aura. Before I could speak, Bai Liu laughed coldly. "You want to enter my sister's altar, but who knows if you're worthy enough? You already know I'm a 9-veined fox, so you don't know how good I am. If you accept me, I'll make you very rich." The ghost continued. Bai Zhong wasn't here, so I didn't know whether to accept him or not. The main reason was that his appearance was too strange. He said he could give me wealth, but how could there be such a good thing as money coming to me? The ghost continued to persuade me, but Bai Liu, impatient, was about to stab him with her dagger. At that moment, I suddenly noticed a man in a purple robe sitting on a nearby tree. The clothes looked like those of rich princes in TV shows. He was squinting and looking at me with a cruel gaze. I was shocked and told Bai Liu, "Ignore that chatterbox. There's another ghost on the tree." Bai Liu and the ghost looked at each other. "There's no one on the tree," they said. Right at that moment, the man in purple on the tree stretched and laughed maliciously, pointing at me. "I want those eyes of yours." When he finished speaking, Bai Liu was thrown by an invisible force, rolling on the ground several times and turning back into her flower snake form, writhing in pain. Sister Wan Wan, run, Bai Liu said to me with difficulty. My legs had no time to move when a cold hand grabbed me by the neck and lifted me up. My feet were flailing in the air, breathing became difficult. The man in purple lifted his other hand and pointed it at my eyes. It's just a flesh reincarnation, but this pair of eyes has a powerful spiritual energy. You don't deserve such a thing. Let me take them as a supplement. I guessed he was the one who had eaten the sacrifice. You ate our sacrifice, how can you kill me? I said. He laughed in a ghostly voice. That little thing isn't even enough to clean my teeth. It's not even worth a single one of your eyes. Today, if you let me take your eyes, I promise the road will be finished smoothly. After saying that, he pounced on my eyes. I was scared and closed my eyes immediately. But the pain didn't come. Instead, the force on my neck loosened. Then I heard him curse angrily. Get out! Who's playing dirty tricks in secret? I opened my eyes and saw that the body of the man in purple was wrapped in silk threads, cutting him and making him bleed. Especially the arm that had been holding my neck, it was almost bent, and the bone could be seen through the flesh. I slowly backed away. The man in purple, in his anger, no longer cared about me and focused on finding the person who had hurt him in the dark. Suddenly, a clear bell rang. The face of the man in purple changed slightly. A second bell rang, and I saw many dense red threads coming from all directions. The scene was very strange. The man in purple finally had the intention to retreat. He looked at me and said, Today, this is just one of my clones. I can't do anything to you, but wait for me. This debt is on your head. Someday, I'll come back and rip out your eyes. After the man in purple finished speaking, he transformed into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. At that moment, I looked at the small burial mound and saw that the male ghost who was there had also disappeared. My throat was still burning. I got up from the ground and was about to go see Bai Liu, but a pair of pale hands were faster than me, and picked up the huddled Bai Liu. This woman, dressed in red, had a pale face, like a vengeful ghost. I looked at her cautiously. Who are you? Let go of that snake. The woman in red smiled sweetly. I don't eat snakes with such a bloody taste. She tossed Bai Liu casually. When I saw Bai Liu fall to the ground, I rushed to pick her up and hugged her, looking at the woman. The woman smiled even more. One has a great temper. Was it you who saved me just now? The woman in red nodded. She moved her ankle, and I heard a bell sound. When I looked closely, I saw that she was wearing a string of red bells on her left ankle, identical to the one I had before. The woman in red pointed to herself and said to me, I am Suqing, your cousin. If you don't believe me, you can take me home and ask grandma. But in my memory, I didn't have any cousin who looked like her, and she didn't seem to have so much ability. So I took the woman who called herself Suqing home. According to Bai Zhong, my grandmother should wake up these days. I had to ask grandma about Suqing. But just as we arrived at the door of my house, Suqing suddenly stopped. Her eyes, which had been smiling before, turned cold. She looked at me, and the look made me feel a chill down my back. Suddenly Suqing came close to my neck and sniffed it, then asked me, Have you been with a snake? And your bells? Come in first and I'll tell you. No need. Her tone was cold, her smile turned into a sneer. You've served 3 snakes on your altar, and you have a snake smell all over your body. You've even lost your virginity. Do you know that the reason you're alive today is because the immortal fox of my family has been protecting you? I was stunned. Her immortal fox? Was she related to the immortal fox who said he would marry me? Especially when I remembered the dream, my face became even uglier. Her current attitude was completely different from when she saved me. Her face was that of someone who was scolding me. My face also turned somber. Now that things have come to this, I have no other choice. I have to save my grandmother and the rest of the Su family. This is all I can do. I thank you for saving me today. Suqing frowned slightly. You still have a choice. You can come with me and meet the immortal fox of my family. You have a promised marriage with him. If you marry him, he will protect you. I reflected for a moment and shook my head. Now that I'm working for Bai Zhong, I just have to endure some difficulties. But at least the whole Su family can live. If I leave, Bai Zhong will take revenge. What will happen to the rest of the Su family and my grandmother? Suqing laughed coldly. You don't know what's good for you. After saying that, she turned and left. I gave one last look at her back, hugged Bai Liu, and went into the house. Then, I summoned Bai Huai to heal her. It wasn't until it was completely dark that Bai Zong returned under the moonlight. I rushed over to him and said, Bai Liu is hurt. A man in purple attacked us. He is the one who ate the sacrifice, and he said he would rip out my eyes. Bai Zong frowned slightly. That's a water dragon. Today I was dealing with his real body. What you saw was his clone. If Bai Liu couldn't handle him, how did you come back unharmed? I remembered the voice of disgust when he ripped the bells from my ankle, and I didn't know what to say to him. The less I spoke, the stranger his look became. It looked like he was going to explode at any moment. The great Lord Bai, who is an immortal fox, saved Sister Wan. Bai Liu suddenly materialized. Her face was pale and she looked very bad, but she took human form to help me. Hearing the word immortal fox, Bai Zong's eyes darkened. Bai Liu stood between us. Bai Zong said nothing more. I wanted to sneak away, but suddenly the familiar genderless voice came from outside the courtyard. Miss, does your altar need someone? Hearing this, Bai Zong asked with a somber face, who's outside? I rushed to say, this ghost is the one that Bai Liu called a nine-veined fox. During the day, he appeared with that man in purple, as if they were accomplices. Bai Zong was a little surprised to hear nine-veined fox, but his anger subsided. People who cultivated before they died and have some powers, they are called foxes. After they die and can be accepted into an altar to eat incense. The Intidas, nine-veined fox, is a type of fox. There used to be many, but now they are rare. Since he wants to enter your altar, go out and look. But if he is a person of that water dragon, there's no need to let him live. I followed Bai Zong to the entrance of the courtyard. Under the moonlight, there was a person without a shadow standing outside. He was wearing a black cloak. When he took off the hood, I could see his face for the first time. His face was very pale and a little blue, but his facial features were regular and clean. He looked quite decent. Seeing Bai Zong, he immediately knelt down. Greetings, great immortal Chang. My name is Tang Liu. I was a singer in life and had some abilities. Then I became a nine-veined fox, and I don't want to continue cultivating alone in a solitary tomb, so I want to join an altar and eat incense. Bai Zong narrowed his eyes and examined him. What do you have to do with that water dragon? Tang Liu rushed to say, I swear by heaven that I was forced by that water dragon to talk to this girl during the day and to lure her to my tomb. That water dragon is too powerful, and I am not his rival. I had to bow my head under someone else's eaves. I asked him, is that water dragon targeting me because of something Grandma Huang told him? Tang Liu nodded. As for what Grandma Huang told the water dragon, he didn't know. From the looks of it, this ghost named Tang Liu seemed to sincerely want a place in my altar. I turned to look at Bai Zong, wanting to know his opinion. But Bai Zong told me to make my own decision. So I accepted Tang Liu. Bai Zong was not interested in what happened next, and he transformed back into a puff of white smoke and returned to the altar. As soon as Bai Zong left, Tang Liu let out a big sigh of relief and carefully approached my ear. Suwan, did you do that to your eyes to become a shaman? I didn't understand. Why did everyone say that my eyes had a problem? Tang Liu said curiously, you yourself don't know, but these eyes of yours are full of spiritual energy. That water dragon was right, they are an excellent supplement. How is it that a common person like you was born with this kind of eyes? My hand fell uncontrollably over my eyes. Since I was a child, I never felt that there was anything wrong with my eyes. But recently, they started to burn, as if my eyeballs were going to fall out. You saw that my eyes are special, do you know why? Tang Liu shook his head. I don't have that ability, I can't know, but why don't you ask your immortal Chang about this? I nodded my head, thinking of asking Bai Zong when I had the chance. After this, I pasted Tang Liu's name on the altar and served him. He told me in detail that in life he was dedicated to singing for ghosts, and if he did well and the ghosts liked it, they would give him reward money. If the ghost was very old, they would even give him antiques that could be sold, so he could control an area of terrain energy. The following days returned to calm. My grandmother woke up a few days later, but as soon as she recovered, she held my hand tightly and nervously asked me how I was. I felt that I couldn't hide things from her, so I told her the truth. That I had agreed to become pregnant with the snake fetus, and that I had become Bai Zhong's disciple, and that only in this way could the Su family pay off the debt and survive. To my surprise, Grandma burst into tears when she heard me. She held my hands and sighed, sobbing, Grandma is useless. In the end, I couldn't give you a happy and peaceful life. You became this way. Listening to her, my eyes also became moist. Then I mentioned Suqing. Hearing the name, Grandma was stunned for a moment, then her expression changed and she grabbed my hand more tightly. After a moment of daze, she said to me, Suqing is your cousin. But she was lost when she was very small. Your aunt was devastated. Then, when you were 8 years old, she suddenly came back and said that she had been following an immortal fox to practice. That in the future, she would be the intermediary between the Su family and that immortal fox. That's the immortal fox you're promised to. Your grandfather said on his deathbed that if the immortal fox came to look for you, Suqing would return to our house. Grandma became more and more anxious as she spoke. What are we going to do? That immortal fox protected you for 18 years, but you accepted that snake. Isn't this breaking the agreement with the immortal? I hesitated for a moment, and finally told my grandmother about the dream. Grandma looked at me and said, Wan, actually, your grandfather told me that there was another reason why he finally decided to marry you to the immortal fox. At that time that immortal fox revealed to your grandfather that if you married him, you would be happy and live in peace for the rest of your life. My grandmother and I talked for a long time, but in the end, I didn't take her words very seriously. While I was comforting her, I felt anxious. On one side was the immortal fox, on the other was the immortal Cheng. I couldn't offend either of them. I felt that I had to do something, and I couldn't continue to be manipulated in this way. Once I had an idea, I went back to my room, closed the door, and called Tang Liu. I wanted to discover the secret hidden in my body. I felt that I had to first understand why my eyes had suddenly become so coveted. Then I would try to practice and improve myself. Tang Liu seemed to weigh his words. That great Lord Bai doesn't let you contact the fox, but he didn't say that you couldn't look for your sister, did he? Tang Liu's words were subtle. I reflected and felt that the person I could trust now was Suqing. Grandma Huang had already started working against me, so I couldn't go back to her. And Suqing had been practicing with that immortal fox since she was a child, serving as an intermediary between the Su family and him. In this kind of matter, she must be an expert. So the next morning, I went to my aunt's house. When Suqing saw me, a malicious smile crossed her face. Since the last time we parted badly, her attitude toward me was not as enthusiastic as at the beginning. I didn't beat around the bush and asked her if she knew the secret of my eyes. To my surprise, Suqing froze for a moment, then smiled at me. I don't know, but the immortal fox I serve definitely knows. Do you want to come and see him with me? Although I really wanted to know what was wrong with my eyes, I was taking a risk by coming to her. How would I dare to see that immortal fox? Suqing probably guessed my thoughts from my expression. Her face became colder. You don't like your immortal fox, why should I like you? If there's nothing else, go back. Don't look for me again. I felt frustrated seeing her attitude. Suqing had saved me on the orders of the immortal fox. She has been following the immortal fox for so many years that she is now more the immortal fox's person than the Su families. I couldn't get any answers from her. It was time for me to go. Just as I stood up to leave, my eyes accidentally met hers. At that moment, I suddenly realized that her pupils were incredibly dark. Those eyes were staring at me. When I realized it, my body was already out of control. I couldn't move. Suqing stood up, smiling, and slowly approached me. I was already planning to look for you, but I didn't expect you to come to me. I couldn't even move my lips to speak. I could only watch her get close to me, stretch out her hand, and gently stroke my face. I never thought that even after that snake took over your body, my immortal fox would still want to marry you. Then, she put her index finger on my forehead. Sleep. When you wake up, you'll be a bride. My consciousness was instantly pulled out. I couldn't even shout for help to Baizhong. After everything went black, I didn't know anything else. In a daze, I heard someone calling me. The voice was ethereal and soft, as if it was very far away. The voice sounded again, and a hand was placed gently on my forehead. In an instant, I regained a little consciousness. I opened my eyes suddenly. My head was resting on a man's legs. He was looking at me. He was wearing a red bridal suit, but his face was covered with a red veil. His beautiful phoenix eyes were looking at me with tenderness. My mind went blank. Then I realized that my body still couldn't move. His fingers gently touched my hair and whispered, Wan, I'll wait for you on Yin Mountain. Instantly, everything seemed like a dream. Everything in front of me disappeared. My eyes started to burn. When I opened them with difficulty, tears had already blurred my vision. I wanted to lift my hand to wipe away the tears, but I suddenly realized that I was sitting in a bridal sedan chair, and my hands and feet were tied with red silk ribbons. The pain in my eyes got worse. I struggled, letting out a sobbing sound. I wanted to ask Suqing why she had done this, but Suqing's next sentence made me not dare to speak again. "Shut your mouth. Yin energy enters through the mouth, and the living cannot be contaminated by it." I couldn't enter, but she could. Wasn't she a living person? Suqing seemed to know what I was thinking and smiled. "I'm half alive." In my mind, her pale face with her bright red lips appeared. I felt that this woman was very dangerous. Was she still a living person? Suqing stretched and wiped the tears from my eyes. Her voice was unusually cheerful. "It's raining on a sunny day. The immortal fox is getting married." Indeed, she had forced me onto the bridal sedan chair. I gritted my teeth and recited Bai Zhong's name in my mind. What I had done to contact Suqing was a secret I didn't want her to know, but now that things had come to this, I could only pray that he would come to save me. If he didn't, I felt that my eyes would hurt so much that they would pop out. "If I dare to help you, do you think I'll be afraid of that snake coming to save you?" Suqing's laughter sounded like a silver bell in my ears. "We are walking on the Yin road. You can't call him with the methods of common immortals. He's an animal immortal. In the time it takes for an incense to burn, we will arrive at Yin Mountain." I started to recite the names of Bai Liu and Bai Huai in my mind again, clinging to life. But no one answered me. However, when I started to recite Tang Liu's name in my mind, his ethereal voice suddenly sounded in my mind. "Oh heavens, Suwan, why do I feel like you're at the meeting point of yin and yang? What have you done?" I was filled with joy. Fortunately, Tang Liu was different from the others. I continued to recite in my mind, "Tang Liu, Suqing tied me up. Now she wants me to marry that fox. She says I'm on the Yin road. Help me tell Bai Zhong." Suddenly the bridal sedan chair stopped. Suqing's cold words made my heart sink. It seemed that we had arrived at Yin Mountain. I wanted to buy time, refusing to get off the sedan chair. When Suqing was about to say something, the chair shook violently, as if the people carrying it had lost control, and it crashed to the ground. If Suqing hadn't grabbed me, I would have fallen off the seat. Suqing's face changed. A somber, strange cry came from her throat, as if she was communicating with someone, but there was no response. She became even more serious. "Don't get out of the sedan chair. Outside is not the normal human road. If you go out, your 3 souls and 7 spirits will be lost. No matter what you hear, don't go out." Before she finished speaking, a sweet and joyful voice of Bai Liu sounded outside. "My great Lord Bai has been waiting here for a long time. Let the disciple of the immortal fox come out and show herself." Suqing lifted a corner of the curtain, and I could only see some blurry scenes. Something was moving on the ground outside. I froze for a moment, then almost screamed. The ground was full of dense black snakes. In the snake nest, I could faintly see several white fox skeletons. It turns out that they were foxes that were carrying the bridal sedan chair, and in such a short time they had been devoured. Suqing said calmly, "Great Lord Bai, why do you ruin someone else's marriage? My immortal fox is not surnamed Hu, but Murong." A cold laugh sounded as if it came from the sky. But the next second, a demonic wind howled, and the curtains of the bridal sedan chair were ripped off. Suqing screamed and was thrown out of the sedan chair, falling into the group of snakes. Before she fell, she cursed, "You, white worm surnamed Bai, this marriage is not yours." Bai Zhong's face was indifferent. With a cold voice he said, "If it's not mine, is it that Murong Shinge's marriage? Besides, he only deserves to be my disciple. Why would I marry him? I'm crazy." Bai Zhong raised his folding fan and hit me in the face without warning. The force was so great that I fell sideways. A refreshing energy was injected into my eyes, and the pain gradually subsided. He got me out of the bridal sedan chair without a word. My hands and feet were still tied, and I lost my balance and fell. The snake nest moved around me. This time I could see everything more clearly. I remembered for no reason the snakes under my old house when I was 8 years old, and the snakes that entered the room that night. "A lunatic!" A furious roar came from the top of the mountain, identical to the voice of the fox in my dream. "You Bai Zhong, you dare to touch my disciple at the foot of Yin Mountain." The immortal fox, dressed in a red robe and barefoot, appeared outside the field. His face was one of grief. He pulled the bloody Suqing out of the group of snakes. When his gaze fell on me, a trace of pain appeared in his eyes. "Bai Zhong, since you don't like her, Why are you harassing her? Stinky fox, this woman sought me out on her own accord. She begged me to save her family. A hint of guilt crossed the face of the immortal fox. One, come here. I'm sorry. I only thought of myself, but not of your family. Marry me, and I will protect you. I sat on the ground, pale. The tension between these two men made me feel suffocated. At the same time, this yin road made me feel weak. Since I was dragged out of the bridal sedan chair, I felt more and more dizzy, like a drowning fish. So when he asked me, I didn't know how to answer, and my mind felt slow. After a while, he realized that I was not well. He seemed to want to run toward me, but his feet stopped. He couldn't take that step. Bai Zhong smiled. Seeing her lose her soul on the Yin road hurts you, but you can't get out of Yin Mountain to save her. How does that feel? In my days, I saw a broken tombstone next to me, with the characters Yin Mountain engraved on it. The immortal fox stood on the edge of the tombstone, clenching his fist. You are a lunatic. She is immortal. Do you want her to die by exposing her to the Yin road? The immortal fox's words made me tremble. I moved my body, trying to get up, but just as I was halfway, Bai Zhong at that moment threw his fan at the back of my head. I screamed in pain and fell back down. I don't know what method he used, but my whole body hurt and I had no strength to get up. Even talking was difficult. If you talk, the yin energy will enter your body and you will die faster, he said. Stinky Fox, do you want to bet with me and see how long she has left to die in front of you? Bai Zhong's tone was light. I looked at him incredulously and his expression was indifferent. The immortal fox was furious, but his face showed a painful helplessness. Now she is also your disciple. Even if you want revenge, you can't do this. Bai Zhong laughed as if he had heard the best joke. So what if she's my disciple? If this one dies, I'll get another one. I warned her not to get close to you. She didn't listen to me. It's her fault if she dies here today. Bai Zhong looked at me smiling, and he purposely put a foot on my hand. The pain came, but I couldn't fight. The immortal fox at the tombstone of Yin Mountain was about to go crazy. Bai Zhong looked at me without blinking. That smile was engraved in my eyes. I trembled. In an instant I understood. He really wanted me to die here today. Suvan, I've remembered. You haven't paid the snake fetus debt yet, he said. He moved his finger, and the snake nest moved, leaving a large space around me. Bai Zhong extended his hand and slowly untied the red ribbons from my hands and feet. After untying the ribbons, his hand stopped at my waist, grabbed the edge of my pants and pulled them down. How about you pay the rest of the snake fetus debt now? My head buzzed. I almost thought I had misheard, but Bai Zhong didn't stop. He grabbed my waist directly. A metallic clang broke the air. The immortal fox, who didn't know where he had gotten a long sword, brandished it toward Bai Zhong, but it was blocked by something invisible. Let go of her. The immortal fox's eyes were red. He wanted to run toward him, but he could only watch all this from the foot of the mountain. Bai Zhong narrowed his eyes. With his other hand, he ripped the bottom of my clothes. In my extreme surprise and humiliation, I wanted to fight, but I couldn't move. Tears rolled down. I couldn't understand why I had to endure all this. I didn't understand why the Su family had a snake debt for burning snakes. But were Bai Zhong's actions really to collect a debt from our Su family? I laughed miserably. The pain spread throughout my body. I didn't dare to look in the direction of the immortal fox, and I desperately tried to hide and bury my face. I bit my lip to suppress the sobs. I could taste blood in my mouth. My consciousness began to blur. This road is not for the living. Am I going to die? But even if I'm going to die, will it be such a humiliating death? Thinking this, I used my last bit of strength to say, the Su family has a snake debt. We accept that. But what do I owe you? Do you dare call yourself an immortal? I don't know what happens to people who lose their souls, but after saying those words, my consciousness became completely blurred. I couldn't feel if I was still breathing. Bai Zhong had stripped me completely naked. Suddenly, everything went silent. The immortal fox was still screaming something, but I couldn't hear anything. The snake nest completely swallowed me and wrapped around me. Bai Zhong seemed to whisper coldly in my ear, "You'll have to be alive until the snake fetus forms. You still have many days ahead of you." I felt like I was having a very long dream. I dreamed of my childhood, before my old house was torn down and before so many snakes were dug out. The smiles of my grandparents, the love of my parents, and the friends I played with at festivals. Laughter echoed in my ears, but then it turned into crying. Many snakes came out. My parents were swallowed, Many small children were swallowed. Finally, the figure of my grandfather also disappeared. Only my grandmother was left by my side, but the snakes were already climbing her body. I couldn't scare them away no matter how hard I tried. In the end, I could only sit and cry my heart out. I don't know how long this dream lasted. In the end, I dreamed that I was being chased by many snakes. When I woke up, I was sore all over. It was hard to even lift my hand. When I wanted to speak, my throat was very dry and it was difficult to make a sound. It seemed like I was in my own room. At the same time, my waist was suddenly squeezed by something. The pain made me want to scream. A huge white snake was wrapped around my waist, as if it was holding its prey tightly. The huge snake head turned toward me. When I looked at it, I trembled involuntarily. It was all an instinctive reaction of my body. I wanted to speak, but its huge snake tail suddenly swept across my face and stopped at my temples. Suwan, your eyes have spiritual energy. The eyes of a person with power shouldn't be yours. Because the eyes themselves contain spiritual energy, your mortal body can't bear it, which is why you feel a burning pain. If it's not treated, you'll go blind. Then you yourself will die because of the burden of these eyes. In the past, there was something that suppressed these eyes, whereas now you have nothing to help suppress your eyes, and of course everything has broken loose. I realized that in the past, it was probably that immortal fox who helped me suppress my eyes and ward off the snake curse. Su 1, your Su family's snake debt and this pair of eyes of yours. If you want to live a few more years, don't test my limits again and again. I'm tired of that stinking fox. If you keep getting entangled with him, you won't have to pay the debt. I'll give you a quick death and send you to reincarnate. This was Bai Zhong's warning. After saying that, he disappeared from the room. I didn't want to be manipulated by Bai Zhong. His temper was unpredictable, which had made me flirt with death. I couldn't go on like this. But if I left him now, what ability did I have to protect myself? When Bai Zhong tried to kill me on the road, Bai Liu was by his side, but she didn't try to save me. She was Bai Zhong's subordinate. She had only helped me before, out of gratitude. And she wouldn't save my life for a small kindness either. Since Bai Liu couldn't help me, Bai Hui naturally couldn't either. In my mind I recited Tang Liu's name, but after waiting for a long time, I didn't get a response. At that moment, I realized something was wrong. Why wasn't Tang Liu responding to me either? Had something happened to him? I endured the pain in my body and slowly got up from the bed. I went to the ancestral hall and whispered, Tang Liu, where are you? A sudden sound rang out. The sound I heard came from behind the ancestral hall. I moved with difficulty toward the backyard. When I reached the backyard, I saw a wooden pole in the center and Tang Liu was tied to it, covered in blood. He heard me and raised his head. Blood was dripping from his mouth and eyes. He smiled bitterly at me. My eyes turned red, and a burning anger surged from my heart. Bai Zhong was taking revenge on Tang Liu. I rushed over without caring, even stumbling and falling to the ground. As I untied the rope for him, I cried, I'm sorry, it's my fault, I caused this to you. When I untied his rope, Tang Liu collapsed on the ground. His face was even paler, and his fingers were trembling slightly. I blocked the sunlight. I don't know where I got the strength, but I dragged Tang Liu back into the ancestral hall. Tang Liu said weakly, a pure spirit like me can't stand the sunlight. He left me there for 3 days. I gritted my teeth. Anger clashed again and again in my heart. I kept telling myself to calm down. Now I had 4 people under my command, but 3 of them were not on my side. The only one who helped me had been punished like this. Just then, the door to the ancestral hall suddenly opened. Bai Zhong appeared at the door. I subconsciously stood between him and Tang Liu. Bai Zhong looked at me without saying anything. He grabbed my arm and dragged me outside. Tang Liu wanted to stop him. But Bai Zhong said to him without looking back, if you don't want to disappear, do what you're supposed to. Bai Zhong carried me and took me to my room. Once there, he threw me on the bed. With one hand he held my shoulder, and with the other, he reached into my clothes. My fingers trembled. Bai Zhong leaned over and kissed me. His tongue entered, stealing the air from my mouth. The kiss almost suffocated me. I closed my eyes, holding back the urge to cry. The hand that was free moved to my abdomen. The touch of his fingers on my skin made me tremble involuntarily, but his next sentence made me open my eyes wide. Suwan, do you want to guess how many snakes you're carrying inside? When I heard that, I went blank. After he said the phrase, his hand was still on my body. I'll tell you. You're carrying a belly full of snakes, countless. I started to struggle again. My body was still trembling, but this time, it was with rage. His words seemed to have magic. I suddenly felt that there was a group of small snakes moving in my abdomen. Tears flowed uncontrollably. I don't know where I got the strength, but I raised a hand and grabbed his neck, my voice trembling. If I'm already pregnant with the snake fetus, then get out of my room. You don't need to touch me anymore. Bai Zhong pressed against me. His eyes met mine. Suwan, do you know how much vital essence a person needs to nurture a snake fetus? The pregnancy lasts 10 months. They grow in your womb, absorbing the vital essence of a living person. How many snakes do you think you can feed on your own? Without me, you'll become a dried-up corpse. Before I could react, Bai Zhong stood up while tidying his clothes. Suwan, I told you the day would come when you would beg me. I lay on the bed, burying my face in the pillow, gritting my teeth to keep from crying. But an idea became clearer in my mind. I had to be strong and not let Bai Zhong control me forever. A few days later, my body recovered. That night, the village chief came to see me with a gift box that looked very valuable. He said he needed my help with something, but after listening to his story, my expression became grim. The village chief had a son in his old age and loved him very much, but 7 days ago, his son went out to play at night and didn't come home. The village chief searched the whole village, but the child had disappeared into thin air. The next night, the well at the village chief's house started bubbling. The village chief's wife was standing by the well and almost fell down in fear. She said she had seen a water ghost. That same night, his wife dreamed that a woman told her that if she wanted to get her son back, she had to go see the sorceress of Shangyang village. Wasn't that referring to me? Since the ghost had specifically sought me out, and the victim was the village chief's son, I couldn't stand idly by. If I didn't take this job, I wouldn't have a place in Shangyang village in the future. But now that I was on bad terms with Bai Zhong, I didn't have much confidence in being able to deal with this kind of entity. After thinking about it for a long time, I told the village chief to go back and that I would consult with the immortal. After the village chief left, I looked for Tang Liu and told him what had happened. Upon hearing the word water ghost, Tang Liu immediately thought of the Jiao that wanted my eyes. All our villages were connected by the same river, the Lotus River. That Jiao had been resting in this river for decades, feeling as if it were the king of the mountain. I felt that the matter was a bit complicated, so in the end I went to the ancestral hall and recited Bai Zhong's name in my mind. A fierce white snake appeared on the altar. I explained the village chief's matter to Bai Zhong. Upon hearing that the incident might be related to that Jiao, his gaze became visibly furious. Bai Zhong coiled around my wrist and we went to the village chief's house together. I arrived at the well and looked inside, as if I were looking for something, although in reality I couldn't see anything. I asked, "Have you looked in this well?" The village chief said they had searched, but there was nothing inside. At that moment, Bai Zhong's voice suddenly sounded in my ear. "The thing is no longer in the well. It's on that woman's back." When Bai Zhong said that the village chief's wife had a water ghost on her back, I felt very confused. My eyes couldn't see those things, but when I entered the house I didn't see anything on the wife's back. I looked at the wife again, and I still didn't see any shadow on her body. Bai Zhong's voice sounded in my ear. "This thing is more cunning than usual. It can't be seen during the day, only at night. Wait for it to get dark, and we'll catch that water ghost." I told the village chief's wife and her husband that the thing that was in the well had attached itself to his wife. I need to wait for it to get dark to catch it. The village chief was startled and felt a little scared. We stayed at their house until it got dark. When night came, I asked the village chief's wife to draw a bucket of water from the well. She walked to the well trembling. This time, in the moonlight, I saw something semi-transparent on her back, like a person crouched on her. If it weren't for the night, it wouldn't be visible. When the village chief's wife stood on the edge of the well, the thing on her back finally moved. At the same time, Bai Zhong shot out from my wrist like lightning. The semi-transparent thing fell to the ground. The village chief's wife shook her shoulders. After she left, Bai Zhong regained his human form. At his feet, the semi-transparent thing became clearer and clearer. At that moment, it was rolling on the ground, whimpering. I looked at the thing, which slowly turned into a female ghost dressed in white. I asked her, "I'm the sorceress of Shangyang village that you talked about. I heard you were looking for me by name." The thing slowly turned its head toward me. Its long, wet hair covered its face. The voice that came out of its mouth was strange. "I'm just a messenger. Please let me go. A great lord of the Lotus River, I don't know his name, asked me to trick the sorceress of Shangyang village into entering the well and dragging her into the underground river. The water ghost sobbed. With that sentence, it was obvious that Jiao had provoked it last time. He wanted to harm me again, using the village chief to lure me. Bai Liu looked into the well, wanting to go down and see, but Bai Zhong pointed at me and told me to go down by myself. I looked at him angrily. It was true that the Jiao was looking for me, but he really wanted me to go down as bait. Without saying a word, he approached me, gave me a kick, and threw me into the well. I screamed as I fell into the water. Since I didn't know how to swim, I was drowning and starting to sink. Only when I showed signs of sinking did his face change. He told Bai Liu to pull me out. "You are destined to be the bait. The water ghost will take you, and its breath will stay in the underground river, so the Jiao doesn't notice." Before I could struggle, Bai Zhong jumped into the well with me. Just when I thought I was going to suffocate, Bai Zhong grabbed the back of my neck with his other hand and suddenly kissed me. He pried my mouth open with his teeth and passed me air. I was a little stunned, but I only heard him say in my ear, "The underground of your village is not ordinary." I wiped the water from my face and realized that in the darkness of the underground river, I could see things clearly. I rubbed my eyes. Not only could I see the dirty things, but I could also see in the dark. In this situation, I didn't think much. I looked up. The underground river was shaped like a cave. The water level was a certain distance from the ceiling, and one could stand on the bottom of the river. The Jiao's plan was to use the water ghost to take me down. There should be a swamp in the middle of the underground river. He probably wanted the water ghost to drag me there. "He's waiting for you there. I'll hide my aura. You just let yourself be carried by the current. The water will become shallower and shallower." After saying that, Bai Zhong transformed back into a small white snake, but this time he didn't coil around my wrist, but slid down my neck and went into my clothes. Bai Zhong pressed against my chest. The snake's tail brushed my skin. I was startled and resigned myself to continuing to float with the current. After being in the water for a while, my body temperature dropped. If Bai Zhong hadn't moved, I wouldn't have felt him hidden in my clothes. The water became shallower and shallower. After that, I basically walked on the river bottom, fumbling in the mud. The underground river was very dark. I wasn't supposed to see anything, but my eyes seemed to be very powerful. At first I could only see some blurry outlines. Later my eyes adapted to the environment and I could see everything clearly. Suddenly, I discovered a huge swamp. There were many rocks scattered around. When I got closer, a sound came from behind the rocks. "You've made me wait so many days. You've finally come." A figure slowly emerged from behind the pile of rocks. It was the Jiao that wanted to gouge out my eyes. Seeing me look at him with fear, he touched his chin. "Your eyes are really something good. You can see me even here." I wanted to warn Bai Zhong to attack, but I suddenly realized that he was no longer in my body. I was scared. The Jiao approached me without rushing. He probably thought I couldn't escape in the underground river. "That woman seriously injured me. I told you I would get my revenge." As he spoke, he grabbed my neck and lifted me. I couldn't breathe. As I struggled, I cursed Bai Zhong 1,000 times in my mind. What was he waiting for at a moment like this? Just then, the force on my neck relaxed noticeably. I thought the Jiao had had a change of heart until I felt blood on my face and saw a severed hand on the ground in front of me. I realized that Bai Zhong had finally attacked. Bai Zhong was standing behind the Jiao, swinging his folding fan and laughing. "If you save yourself, you won't become a dragon in 1,000 years. What a delusion." The Jiao was furious. He turned around abruptly. Taking advantage of the moment, I grabbed my neck and suppressed the urge to cough and ran to the side. "The two immortals are fighting, don't hurt me." The Jiao clutched his wrist that was bleeding non-stop. His face was ridiculously pale. Bai Zhong laughed coldly. "The last time we met, I didn't expect you to have a duplicate form. You want to gouge out my disciples' eyes. If I had known, I would have pulled out your tendons and nailed you to the bank of the Lotus River." The underground river, which was originally flowing smoothly, suddenly became agitated. It was as if something was stirring the water. A jet of water rose to the sky. I was scared. Just when I didn't know where to hide, Bai Zhong grabbed me. He pulled me back. Bai Liu, who had arrived at some point, grabbed my hand. "You boy from the Bai family, I come from the Yin Mountains. If you die here today, your brother won't come to collect your corpse. I'll eat you until there's nothing left but your bones." Without giving me any more time to react, Bai Liu dragged me downstream. On the way, I asked Bai Liu if that Jiao was very powerful and if they had known each other before. Bai Liu's expression was very complex. He thought for a moment and then said, "The Kunling Mountains have many dragon veins. That Jiao comes from the Kunling Mountains. His status is not low." I rubbed my arms and continued to ask, "I saw you and it looked like you recognized him." Bai Liu smiled helplessly. "Most Jiao dragons stay in a single river and don't move easily. That Jiao only arrived at the Lotus River in the last few decades, which means he doesn't have a fixed abode and settles wherever he can. And since he says he's from the Qinling Mountains, it means he's not a water Jiao. When he was a snake, he must have obtained some kind of immortal origin in the Qinling Mountains. The Qinling Mountains have good feng shui and many spiritual creatures and immortals. But if we talk about Jiao from Qinling, I can only think of one who is very notorious. There was a Jiao who ate human hearts and did many bad things, so he was expelled from the Qinling Mountains. His name was Bifeng. I really didn't think that this small Lotus River could harbor such a big figure from the Qinling Mountains. That Jiao has practiced for thousands of years, while Baizhong hasn't practiced for very long. Can he really beat Bifeng? I wasn't at all worried about something happening to Baizhong. I even wished that he and Bifeng would injure each other. It would be a great joy. I was only afraid that if he couldn't beat Bifeng, Bifeng would come looking for me. I wanted to ask Bai Liu if Baizhong could beat him, but I was worried that my intentions were too obvious. "You and Baizhong are from the Shaoxingan Mountains. Do you have many brothers and sisters at home?" I said. Bai Liu dragged me toward the village and said to me as we walked, "The great Lord Bai is the master of the Shaoxingan Mountains. In the future, Sister Wan, you'll have to go visit him with the great Lord Bai." I didn't say anything, but my heart was full of rejection. If I went with him, who knows how he would torment me again. Bai Liu continued, "Bai Huai and I had no surname. My name is Liu and his is Huai. The great Lord Bai took us in and gave us the surname Bai. We have already cultivated our divinity in the Shaoxingan Mountains. As for brothers and sisters, the great Lord Bai only has one brother who lives in the Daxingan Mountains." When I first learned their names, I thought Bai Liu and Bai Hui were Baizhong's sisters, or that they had some blood relationship. But then I realized that their master-servant relationship was clear, and I couldn't understand why they all had the surname Bai. Bai Liu said that he would leave the rest to Baizhong. Although Baizhong's practice was not as long as Bifeng's, the snakes that came out of the Shaoxingan Mountains were not ordinary. At the same time, he said that Bai Hui, following Baizhong's orders, had already found the village chiefs. So drenched, I returned to the village chief's house. The village chief saw me return in a pitiful state and ran toward me. He had many questions, but he didn't know whether to ask them. I knew what he wanted to ask. I took a deep breath and said, "The water ghost is resolved. I already know where your son is. There's a cave on the west side of the mountain next to the Lotus River. There's a flowery snake that I left at the entrance of the cave. Your son is inside. Go quickly." The village chief was very grateful and knelt down before me at that moment. I quickly helped him up and told him not to waste time and to go find his son in the direction I had told him. After listening to me, the village chief quickly called someone to light a torch and go find his son on the mountain. His wife brought me a coat and took me into the house. She brought me a hot towel and hot tea and then wiped her tears while thanking me. I drank the hot tea and didn't rush home. On the one hand, I wanted to wait and see how Baizhong was doing. On the other hand, I had to wait for the village chief to bring his son back to make sure he was okay before I left. The place I pointed to was clear, and besides, Bai Huai had transformed into a snake and was at the cave entrance as a sign. The village chief brought the child back quickly. The child was covered in mud and his face was pale, and there were signs that he had been in the water, but he was still breathing. Bai Liu whispered to me, "Bai Huai already checked him. There's nothing serious, but it will take a few days for him to wake up." I told this to the village chief and told him to watch him closely in the next few days. Only then did I go home. The fight between Baizhong and the others in the underground river seemed terrifying from below, but on the surface it didn't seem like there was any movement. I went home with complex thoughts. Just as I opened the door, I saw a striking puddle of blood in the courtyard. I panicked, thinking that something had happened to my grandmother. But Tang Liu came out and after a moment's hesitation told me, "You'd better go to the ancestral hall to take a look." The trail of blood in the courtyard extended to the ancestral hall. I ran to the ancestral hall. I opened the door and saw Baizhong sitting under the altar. Half of his white robe was stained with blood. One of his hands hung limply. I stood at the door, not knowing what to do. Seeing him covered in wounds, I felt a little compassion. Bai Huai was good at healing. Just as I wanted to call him, he raised his head and looked at me. Are you thinking that it would be great if that Jiao and I injured each other? That way you and the Su family could live in peace. Don't worry, I'll definitely live until after you die. A severe mockery appeared on his face. Blame your bad luck in this life for having a pair of eyes like these. If you want to escape, try it in your next life. Hearing his words, the insignificant compassion I had felt for him disappeared. I gritted my teeth and said, Fine. I'll definitely live a long time, and you just wait. I slammed the door and ran into Tang Liu, who was coming over. He looked embarrassed. I didn't want to say anything to him and ran to my room. I took off my soaked clothes and took a hot bath, but I still caught a cold. Probably because my health isn't very good, and last night between the cold water and the night wind, I couldn't stand it. Since I became his disciple, my grandmother rarely got involved in my affairs. But this time, when I caught a cold and had a fever, she took care of me in bed, scolding me to be more careful next time. She said that although a cold is not a big deal, many small illnesses can harm the body. After taking the cold medicine, I felt very sleepy. In addition, I was agitated all night, so I slept all day. While I was sleeping, I felt my body burning. The little strength I had completely vanished. I thought the cold had gotten worse, and I got up to take more medicine, but just as one foot hit the floor, my abdomen had a sudden cramp. I fell to my knees, clutching my stomach. My eyes blurred. My period had come. This isn't right, it wasn't the day. No, Bai Zong said I was pregnant with a snake fetus and wouldn't have a period again. So what was happening to my stomach?